So welcome to the Visual Marketing Principles and Pop-Up Shop Solutions. That's a bit of a mouthful. So we're going to start with the agenda, what it is that we're going to look through today. And we'll start off by looking at the visual marketing principles. So that's an introduction to visual communications, what that's all about, a little bit of background history to that. Then we'll look at purpose, so visual marketing secrets. And then the actual principles, will dive deep into the three main principles, which are the 5-star standard, the Power of 3 process, and the secret sense strategy. I give them these names, don't I, which I find really difficult to say. But yeah, what we'll be doing after that is, so part 1 is about visual marketing principles, and part 2, we're going to be looking at pop-up shop solutions. Got my teeth in this time. The way that this is going to work is you've got your ideas books. Hopefully everybody's got the ideas book.
Yeah.
You all got it, yeah?
Yes.
Right, brilliant, brilliant. What I'm going to do is also I'm going to put people on silent, if you don't mind, just so that there's no kind of doorbells ringing and dogs barking in the background, although my doorbell and dog might bark, so we'll see. So yeah, we're going to start off by looking through this. You've got your ideas book. If you haven't, I've put a copy in the chat. We'll be working through that. Now, the reason I call it as an ideas book is literally what I'm talking about should spark ideas. All your businesses are different. When I talk about principles, don't think that you've got to do everything that I suggest, because what we're trying to do here is give you some more ideas, some advice, that even if you just take one thing away from it, you know, add one thing, or it might be that you're taking something away from your stand or move something around, that's fine. It's all about kind of degrees of kind of improvement on it. So you're all at different stages. So what I don't want you to do is become overwhelmed, because this is a 3-hour masterclass, which is a long time, although I'm going to split it into 6 half-hour sessions. They're going to be around about half hour. And then I'll give you an activity to do, and, you know, you can go grab a cuppa and that kind of thing. So I'm going to break it down, but there is a lot of content here. However, it's worth giving you all of this content because each of you will take different things from it. But as I say, don't be overwhelmed by it and think, oh, I've got to do this, and this. There is a checklist to help you, but honestly, you don't have to tick all of the boxes. For this one, you definitely don't have to tick all of the boxes. So you've got your ideas book as a place to write down notes, write down ideas, you know, scribble in it. One of the reasons that I've made it black and white is you can highlight things, colour it in if you want, doodle. I'm a great believer in thinking through your hand bit. So talking about it being more experiential learning. Yes, we're online for this, but, you know, we can still interact with each other. There is going to be the opportunity when you do your pop-up shop as well. I'm going to be there in the morning. So, you know, well, actually, I'll be there all day. So I can help you. We can put some of this stuff into practice, but it's good for you to know this before you get there, so that when you're packing and thinking about what you're going to take, you've got these ideas in mind. So there'll be checklists within your book as well. And then for the questions and answers, we can break out and do that. I'm aware that we've got a lot to cover. So from a time point of view, sometimes it's easier if you've got a question when I'm busy talking about something, so you don't forget it. Pop in the chat, maybe with the word question or just a cue at the beginning. And then what I can do is at the end of each section, I can review back over the chat, and then we can pick up on any questions. So if something comes to mind that you're thinking, right, I'm not quite sure what that means, then pop it in the chat, and then I'll make sure that your questions get answered and that we don't move on without you understanding any of it. Okay. So we're going to start with visual communications. What's visual communications? Well, this is what I am all about. I call myself the visual communicator. And I've got over 3 decades of experience of bringing ideas to life. I've just admitted Silver. That just proves that I Can't actually multitask. I can't do two things at once. Hi, Silva. We've just started, so you haven't missed anything. So we're just setting the scene here. Yeah, we're just setting the scene. So starting with visual communications. What is visual communications? Well, this is me way back in the 1980s when I did a visual communications course, and I specialised in graphic design. And you can see this is old school. This is literally the invention of the computer. And you can see you're still at drawing boards there. So yeah, I've got lots of experience bringing ideas to life. I've founded 3 businesses and brands, and I've worked with the big 3. These are my pals: Santa Claus, Willy Wonka, and Mickey Mouse. And what they've all got in common is they started off as an idea in someone's imagination, and they've grown on to be world brands. Well, that Willy Wonka one, that was my chocolate fountain business, but we'll talk more about that later. And what I'm doing here is I'm giving you a bit of background. So what I would call this is my origin story. So whilst it's not in your workbook as a task, it is something that I want you to think about, because you've each got an origin story. You've each got a reason why it is that you do what you do. And actually your clients find that fascinating. So yes, it's about your products or your services, the thing that you do, but there's also that thing, the reason behind why it is that you do what you do and what makes you an expert and a specialist. So I'm going to give you background into the reason behind why I do what I do. And you'll also see, I'm going to teach within that. Here comes Louise as well. I'm going to teach within that the points of why all of this stuff's so important. So I'm going to take you on a journey with me. So yeah, so this is me. I've worked for the big 3, Santa Claus, Willy Wonka, and Mickey Mouse. And my claim to fame is I invented the metronomes way back when. So whether you love them or you hate them, I'm sorry, but that was me. Well, it was me, but a team of people as well. And again, this all started with an idea. Traditionally, visual marketing, so I call it visual marketing now, it was known as visual merchandising. So if you think about window displays, and I'm the 3rd generation of visual merchandisers in my family, so visual merchandising, VM, is in my DNA. But don't worry if it's not in yours, because I'm going to give you tools and tips so that you can get there as well. But I'll take you on a little journey, and you can see where it comes from and the reasons why it's so important. So going way back when, back to the 1920s, well, really 100 years ago, F. Ord, that was my great-grandma's shop in Backstreet, Hexham, and that was my great-uncle standing outside of it. And then my grandma had a shop as well, a cafe in Backstreet, and that's her standing outside of it holding on to my mum. Now, it's fabulous that I've still got these pictures because my mum and dad did family history. And I didn't realise this until more recently when I had a conversation with my mum about this stuff. You know, I went on to do visual communications, but I didn't realise that literally it was in my DNA. And then my mum tells me the story about, I said, well, how did they do the windows? Did anybody teach them? And she went, I don't think so. She said, but your grandma won a window competition. I was like, did she? She says, oh yes, they had a competition for the best windows. And I said, well, how did she do that? And she said, well, she got some black paint and she painted out the windows black, and she left a little hole, a little gap in the black paint. And I was like, well, what was the big reveal? Because Phoenix windows, they do that now, don't they? At Christmas time, they have this big night where they kind of reveal a Christmas display. I said, so what happened next? She said, well, nothing. She said, but she had a queue all the way down the street because everybody was coming to peep through the hole to see what was inside. And I was like, that's genius. And then I was like, my grandma created Intrigue. You know, my business is called Create Intrigue, but I didn't know anything about this story at that time. And the reason I'm telling you this story is when you think back, it was all about literally footfall. You know, we didn't have the likes, we didn't have the comments that you can do on social media now. And this visual merchandise and this window display stuff, It's like your windows attracted the attention of people that passed by. So whilst you might not have a physical shop window, you've got a digital shop window, which is why I changed the name from visual merchandising to visual marketing, because everybody has got a shop window. So that might be on your phone. It might be something like an Etsy site. It might be your website. We all have shop windows. And my business is called Create Intrigue. And part of that is what we're trying to do is literally attract the attention of your target audience, make them stop, make them look. And then the next thing is we want to make them buy or encourage them to buy. And then this other story. So my mum worked for Phipps Ironmongers in Hexham, which doesn't exist anymore. Apparently they were the Amazon of the day. If Phipps didn't sell it, it didn't exist. And my mum did the window display. Now, this isn't a picture of any of her displays, but she tells me the story about how there was two things. One thing was that she was doing the window display and the owner asked her to put some huge paraffin lamps in the window. And she actually said, no, I'm not going to put them in the window. It'll look mad. It'll look crazy. They're far too big. I won't put them in the window. Now, she tells me that that was the first time that she ever stood up to her boss and refused to do something. Now, if we imagine kind of like this olden time, she tells me the stories about how she got called up to Mr. Phipps's office and she had to climb these wooden stairs thinking, uh-oh, that's it. And as she came back down the stairs, one of her colleagues said to her, well, what's happened? What's happened? Have you got the sack? She'd actually got a pay rise. Because I think he realised the value in what it was that she did. And then another time she did a window display and it was full of Pyrex. Now, I don't know if you realise, but Pyrex is a Sunderland-based company. That's why you've got the glass, you know, the International Glass Centre there. In fact, that's why also along the northeast coast, you get a lot of sea glass. So Pyrex had this technique from Conan's in America where they could heat the glass up so that you could then put it in the oven so that you could cook your meals kind of just in one pot. So my mum did a display anyway with Pyrex and the Pyrex rep came up and he loved her display and actually offered her a job in Sunderland at the head office to work on the display side of things. Apparently she refused because she just met my dad at that time. And from Hexham in those days to Sunderland was just too far. And kind of thankfully, she married my dad, and otherwise maybe I wouldn't have been here. But it's fascinating to me to see how this stuff's in my DNA, but also as a learning point. You know, the fact that my great-grandma was creating intrigue by something as simple as painting the window black, you know, that's just about an idea. And that how my mum ended up, you know, getting a pay rise and also getting a job offer because other people valued the visual merchandise and the way that she created her display. My first job was working for the Body Shop. So the company that I ended up working for as a graphic designer, he owned Body Shop franchises again way back in the 1980s. He owned 5 in the northeast. And he said to me, could you design the window displays for us? So I kind of fell into this stuff without thinking about it. But I had at art college and at school done sculpture as well as graphic design. So I was more kind of in the 3D world. And then I moved on for 25 years. I worked for a Christmas displays company, Centre Design. So we did all the Christmas displays in the Santa's Grottos and the Metrocentre and for all of the shopping centres in the UK and around Europe. I had my own chocolate fountain business because when it was my 40th birthday, I was like, I want something different there. I Googled, I found a chocolate fountain. I'd never seen a chocolate fountain in my life, but I said to my husband, we need one. And when he started to look, he was like, this is big in America, but not in the UK. So at first we were just going to hire one, but then we noticed there was actually a gap in the market. So we ended up setting up a business, and this was a part-time business. This was something that we did at the weekend. In fact, we used to get paid to go to other people's parties and eat chocolate. So it was just like a fab business that we ran for 10 years. So this was part-time in parallel with other stuff. And then when I got redundant from the Christmas display company, so another business took us over, No.1. We were No.1 in the UK, No.2 took us over. And then the whole business collapsed because they closed us down. They kept the head office in the Midlands. But what they forgot was it wasn't about the projects, it wasn't about the contracts, it wasn't about the money. It was about the people. And without the people and the knowledge that those people had, their whole business collapsed. So in 2023, I started my own business, and it's nearly 10 years now. It's taken us a long time to get to this point as to where, what it is that I do. But I've got 3 sides to it. So vision mapping, it's all visual communications. Vision mapping's about the ideas in your head. Visual doodles, some of the drawings. This is a visual doodle. So I draw people's stories and ideas. And visual marketing, this is about your brand, products and services and what we're focusing on today. And this is where it comes from. So mapping out the ideas in my head through the vision mapping process, I was then able to categorize the different points, because over the years, I had knowledge, like you've gathered knowledge over the years. So then I categorized them into what do people need to know? Well, the main things that I believe you need to know today are the 5-star standard, the Power of 3 process, and the secret sense strategy. So we're going to be looking at those first, and then we're going to dive into the pop-up shop solution. The brand storytelling system is more about your origin story, which is what I've kind of just taken you through very quickly now. So thinking about where, why and where you started your business. And then the other stuff, customer service and all that, that's actually happening. That's stuff that you've already been doing and you will do when you get into the pop-up shop. So let's start with part 1, visual marketing principles. It's going to be an introduction to what this is all about. So what's the purpose of it? And this is, you have got sections in your ideas book on this. Let me have a look. I'll tell you page numbers. So we're starting now on page 2, purpose of visual marketing. So I believe visual marketing, VM, it's everything your customer or prospects see or experience. So what you want to be doing is creating a positive image of your business, because that should result in you selling more stuff. Visual marketing, it does all of these things. It's a cost-effective way to present your brand's products and services. We talk about it being a silent sales technique, which is fabulous, because often you don't have to say anything. It's just there for people to look at and interact with. So it's being discussed as actually being an art and a science. Now, I do this more from intuition, but there is, if you like the facts and figures, there is, research behind all of this stuff. It's a way of attracting customers to increase sales. It's by making your products more appealing to the eye. So big brands use this. They know how to attract your attention. But what I realized when I was made redundant is that small businesses didn't actually know the stuff that I kind of instinctively knew, which is why I then started to teach it. And it applies to everything that you do, your designs, your displays, in photographs. It is the reason why it's putting over to your customers the reason why you do what you do, so you capture their attention by making it visually appealing, and that should motivate purchases. So you can do it digitally online, or you can do it in the real world, and you've got a chance to do that at the pop-up. So you might be thinking, well, a silent salesperson, I don't understand how that works. So have you ever walked into a room, because I'm going to explain it through a feeling that you might have experienced. Have you ever walked into a room and seen a wonky picture on a wall? So you've walked in a room and there's been a picture frame up there and it's not quite straight. I don't know if you want to drop in the chat. Does anybody see that immediately? Because there's going to be 3 types of people here. There'll be the people that will walk into that room and they'll see that picture on the wall and it will annoy them. They'll see it straight away It might be in a restaurant, you might be sitting having your meal, you keep looking up and you're thinking, I've got to go and straighten that picture. I've just got it. I've seen that note. I'll come back to you, Heather. Yeah, you see that wonky picture on the wall and you go, no, I've got to straighten it. So that's kind of like one type of person. Another type of person might not see it straight away, but if somebody goes, have you seen that picture on the wall? It's not straight. And you go, oh yeah, it isn't. Oh yeah, it's not quite straight. And then you've got other people who don't see it. Even if you point out to them, they go, really? But if you give them a tool, if you give them a spirit level, they can put that on the picture and go, ah, yes, it's not straight. I can use that tool to straighten it. So some people can straighten it by eye. And what I'm trying to demonstrate with this is, doesn't matter whether you see the wonky picture on the wall or not, or in fact, as Heather pointed out, the slide is really bothering her. This slide, whether you noticed it or not, is actually off by 1 degree. Okay, but that might bother you. And what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that can be the difference between somebody walking past your stand or swiping past your image because it looks uncomfortable to them. It doesn't feel quite right. And it's the weirdest thing. It's really hard to explain because it is a bit like a feeling. It's like an intuition thing. Sometimes when people walk past things or scroll past things, it's because of what I call the wonky picture on the wall. So what I'm going to do is try and give you tools that will help you straighten, you know, in case your picture is a little bit wonky. There's a caveat to this. Sometimes it might be worth making that picture wonky. So they call this sometimes like disruptive marketing. In fact, some people will purposely put a picture upside down so that people will come and go, your picture's upside down. Then you've started a conversation. So this is what I'm talking about. Whilst I'm telling you what these principles are and these kind of rules, once you know what the rules are, you can choose whether you want to break them. At least you know what the rules are. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. So we're thinking about this wonky picture on the wall. So it applies to everything. We talked initially about that shop window, but it then goes into the shops, you know, the interior display. For me, it's everything, visual merchandise and everything you see in the physical world. So it can even be, it's the signs and graphics, the staff dress code and badges. Have you ever been in a shop and you've walked up to somebody and said, excuse me, can you tell me? And they've said, I don't work here. I'm on my lunch break. Have you done that before? Because I know I have. And that's because it's that visual thing. You've looked around for some help and you've looked at somebody and thought maybe the way that they're dressed or what they were doing, their demeanor, you thought they look like the work here. So we're making these kind of visual connections all the time. It's also to do with the environment. We'll talk about that more in the secret sense strategy, the atmosphere that you make, and the pop-up shops, here I go again, trade, show, stands, and marketing stores. They're all places where you can use visual marketing. So I've transformed that into from visual merchandising into visual marketing because it's evolved into the virtual world as well. So these principles, they still apply to your digital shop window on your website, and I'll show you through this the different ways you can use them. They apply when you're in person as well. So that what I call experiential marketing, that live interaction. And that's what you've got a chance to do when you've got your pop-up shop. You're there with your customers. Again, that connection thing, it's so much more important than perfection. So we're not looking for you to tick all these boxes or for your display to be perfect, because it's a learning process. You'll transform every time you do your display. You learn something new. And we're going to be engaging as many of the 5 senses as possible. So this first activity, this first section is a fun one, just to get you started with a word search. Now, you won't have time to circle everything on there, but it's just to get you thinking about it. This will be in your book and I'll leave it on the screen as well. But if you take a minute or two just to have a look at that, you could start circling ones if you'd like, but what you've got is a list down the side. And what I'd like you to do is also think about the things that aren't on that list, because there are things that visual merchandising may apply to in your business that I haven't listed there. So take the next couple of minutes. I'm going to pause for a few minutes just to think about how what I've talked about applies to your business before we move on to the next section, which is the 5-star standard.